Kia ora. Welcome to Business Your Way, a podcast where I take you behind the scenes and look at the strategies, systems, and support needed to grow and scale an online service business. Because you deserve a business that doesn't feel like work, one that gives you energy and the resources to do what matters most to you. Whether it's figuring out where to spend your time, how to maximize your profitability, or streamlining your processes so things get done quickly and efficiently, my guests and I, we've got you covered. I'm your host, Sandra Julian, Indigenous mama of three, fashion-loving sewist and business strategist. Each week, I want to help you dream big, plan well, and do the work to grow and scale your business your way. Vanhishikha, welcome to the Business Your Way podcast.
Thank you so much. Yes, you're very, very close to pronouncing my name. It's Vanhishikha. So I would say 80% close. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be speaking to you. I've heard a lot about the podcast already.
That's great. Awesome. Well, why don't you kick us off by telling our listeners who you are, what you do, who you serve, and how you make your moolah.
Definitely. So I'm Vanhishikha Bhargawa. I am the founder of Contesify, which is a B2B SaaS content marketing agency. We've been working with startups in the SaaS ecosystem for about 6 years now and ongoing. 6 years if I don't count my solo journey as a content marketer in the ecosystem. And how we earn our moolah is fairly straightforward and also not. For most of the world, it's only about writing content, but it's actually an amalgamation of marketing, content writing, and understanding the product. So yeah, that's who we are in a gist.
Nice. So your clients, if I get this right, your clients are other SaaS product developers?
Yes, correct. They are the people who you see building automation suites, engagement suites, something like probably for that matter, even Shopify. So Shopify e-commerce platform is actually SaaS and they are one of our clients.
Brilliant. And for those that don't know what SaaS is, how would you describe SaaS?
Okay, so SaaS is essentially software as a subscription. So when, for example, you take up Netflix and you take up the subscription, it's in a way a software wherein you are paying for a subscription. It's like a recurring payment that you're making to them. We don't serve Netflix. I wish we did, but we kind of serve products which are similar to, let's say, maybe Buffer, or let's say maybe Hootsuite. So all your social scheduling tools that you see today. And when they say that, okay, hey, you can pay for a month for about $10, or you can maybe take a subscription for an entire year for $100, those are the kind of softwares that we are at the moment working with.
Okay. And so how do you help those companies with their marketing?
I think this is the most interesting part and the part that we actually love doing. So social scheduling, for example, is fairly easy to understand. But when I explain marketing automation, there are a lot of people who probably will say, hey, it only means a welcome email or it only means weekly newsletters, right? So an automation suite, or let's assume a logistics solution, it has so much capabilities, I would say. But at the same time, because I'm an outsider, I'm a third person, let's say a non-technology kind of a person, I may not know of all its use cases. For that matter, I may not even know something like that exists. So our job essentially is to simplify technology in such a way that when somebody else reads it, they're able to identify that, hey, this is what the technology is all about. This is how I can use it to my benefit. And that's how I implement it. So we educate about a technology in a very, I would say we remove all the jargons out of technology because mostly tech people don't like removing jargon. So we do it for them.
Oh, I love that. I hate business jargon. Like I remember my early days in business and there was just so much jargon. I was like, oh, I don't get it. I'm just going to do things my way. And off I went, ignoring all of the business advice, I suppose, because it was just all too much jargon for me to comprehend and interpret how I wanted to market my business or how I wanted to deliver my business versus all of this jargon that everyone was rabbiting on about. So I love that that's your job, is to remove all the jargon and make it simple for people to understand in terms that people can digest and use and understand.
Exactly. I mean, that's the end point. I mean, if somebody wants to sell something to an audience that has not built it, you are going to have to simplify and, kind of show them the value of it. Otherwise, if they speak the same lingo, they might as well build it for themselves. It's pretty much similar to that.
Yes, yes. All right. So tell me a bit more about your business. How long have you been operating?
I have been in the industry for now 7 years, and I worked full time at a startup for about 1.5 years, post which I started out as a freelancer, I would say. Contesify didn't really come into being, but I am someone who's attracted to, let's say, maybe multiple solutions when it comes to technology because I came from an engineering background. I wanted to tap into practically everything, to kind of understand each and everything that was out there in the market, as a SaaS solution. Because back then, the word SaaS by itself was very, very new. We used to call it software in college. And when I came to know, okay, it's also sold as subscription and there's something beyond Salesforce and Microsoft as well, I wanted to do it. I wanted to know all about it. So I started out as a freelancer, a regular content writing freelancer, because that's how I got trained. And this was fairly new, so I did not want to touch the marketing side of me yet. And thankfully, I got an opportunity with one of the products that was incubated by Ogilvy and Mather, Singapore. And I think that I was lucky there because I got my mentor there, essentially. And then eventually he was the one who told me, okay, you have a sound tech background. How about you stop using jargons and write me a 250 words explaining analytics? I literally started my career with writing 250 words as a college pass out in 30 minutes because I wanted to prove a point. And then he groomed me and he said that, okay, this is what went wrong in the 250 words. How about you expand that? And that went into, I think, a 2000 words article, my very first. And that's how my internship or my stint with this particular company really began. And that's where we started. I guess I ran the show alone for about an year and a half. After that, I made my first hire. And today we're like 13 people because we kept bringing on anything and everything that, sounded interesting as a technology. So everybody in the team has a penchant for technology, I would say. So I just brought everybody together.
Nice. So you started out as a content writer. Are those the services that you currently provide under the umbrella of Contesify? Or has the service expanded to more than just content writing?
So when I began with Ogilvy, like as a freelancer, yes, I was only offering content writing services because it was very new. And as an engineering graduate, typically we are told how to write in bullet points. We are never asked to write in, a very nice, superfluous way when you're talking and engaging an audience. So we are the white paper kind of people. And I think we started out with writing. But like I said, I found my mentor there. He knew that I had a knack with using things, technology and logic. He slowly started pushing me towards, and this is, I think, 2013. So back then, digital marketing was, the main term. There was no such thing as content marketing specifically. It had just started out. So he was the first one to tell me, how about you start using Twitter for the company? How about you start doing Pinterest? So he introduced me to different concepts that were already being used by their likes. And we were very, very new to it. So I started with writing because it was simpler for me to do, because simplifying technology was something easier for me. Marketing
Mm.
was something I was still learning. So I was with this incubated startup for almost 2 odd years. And in the meantime, I'd started working with a couple of other technology solutions as well. So I was still trying to get a hang of how to do the simplification without making the product sound so boring or so not up to the mark, because people also want to use big technologies these days. So I was still finding a mix. So we started with only offering writing, but as of today, we have a bigger, kind of a service offering. We offer the entire content marketing piece, which identifies your audience, which identifies what your audience wants to read about, what your audience really understands out of what you're writing, and how do you optimize your writing for it. Yes, writing is a part of our service, a big module, because most of these software developers honestly don't want to simplify their technology or don't have the time for it, because they really want to focus on product development. They don't want to focus on the writing part of it. So, yeah, I guess writing is going to stick with us for a very, very long time.
Nice. So, did you always know that you wanted to build an agency after operating for a freelancer for a wee while? How did you know it was the right time for you to start expanding your team and move into that agency model?
Honestly, I think it just happened because one, interest to the startup ecosystem was really, thriving back in 2013, 14, 15. These kind of terms, startups, scale ups, which was not exactly that we used to call them companies, they started coming up. So I got placed right out of my college with Microsoft, and my choice was either to join a full time corporate job or to try this out. But the good thing is that I was waiting for my results, and I was actually like, okay, let me not waste my time, try something out, because I'd been hearing all about these startups, etc. And I just started, kind of, like they say, side hustle is what we call it right now. I think back then I'm not even sure if that was a term, but I just started it out, and I was like, okay, this is interesting, I want to learn more, and if I fail at it, I'll probably go back into the tech field that I got placed in. So I have nothing to lose. I'll probably try it out for 2 years. 2 years is what I gave myself. And the moment I was in, the moment I took my first time job, like full time job as a content marketer, I knew this was something that I wanted to do. But then I soon realized that I wasn't built to do only like work on only one product, because honestly, there's only so much that you can do with one product. You lose inspiration to write if you're writing about the same thing over and over again. So I took up another one. And I think this whole thinking of mine, it resulted in 5 really good software products in my hand. And they all wanted to scale the work that they were doing with me. So I was like, now as an individual, I cannot realistically handle it. I was already working 14, 15, 16, maybe even upwards, hours a day. And I was like, okay, now I think it's the time that I need somebody's help. It started literally out as I need someone else to help me out. It wasn't really an entity, it wasn't really anything. So I actually reached out to one of the people that I'd worked with, and I said that, and I knew that she was from a journalism background, but she could write technology if given a proper brief. And briefing was something that I could definitely do. So I started out with her. And I think because now there were like two sets of people, two sets of hands. So we knew that, hey, we could tackle more. I brought on more projects. We and actually I did not. It was more like word of mouth. And then we slowly, gradually, I think, walked across one whole year, eventually realizing we're going to need more people. So I think the agency came into being on its own because people who knew me from the software industry, I am a very one-on-one person. So if there's a software developer that I'm working with, eventually they go on to becoming friends. So because I get involved, I like to get involved. And now so does my team. Thankfully, they're all built the same way. So we are becoming this I would say we are your extended team, right? So they all associate with us on a deeper level. So obviously, when somebody asks them that, who are you working with? They actually refer that client to us. And I think our client base grew so massively, it was finally time to say that, okay, no longer just a bunch of ad hoc freelancers working together. I think it's time to formalize it. So that's how the agency came into being.
And how long ago was that?
This was, I would say, I started it out around 2014, formally 2014, or towards the beginning of 2015, formally as a company. Before that, we were already 3 to 4 people working on a lot of projects, just did not have an entity to associate it with.
Super fascinating. I love that you brought on your first employee as a chargeable person. So they came in to help you, and immediately they were doing client work, which meant immediately you were cost recovering the cost of having that person work with you.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, when was that time that you brought on your first non-chargeable admin support kind of staff member?
I think that has to be my dad. I would say admin support. So he's still unpaid, just by the way. So he's already working. He's actually working even now, and I am like, I don't. So there's certain aspects of the business that I'm still very skeptical touching, and that would, let's say, be the finance side. So I know how to make the money, I know how to work, but I do not know how to record it. Right. I am so bad at it, or maybe I'm just like so distracted with everything else that I'm doing, that I back then told him that, hey, for all the taxes, etc., I don't understand this. You're my admin. It used to be a joke. Now it's his job. So he's the most unpaid member. I don't plan on paying him.
Oh, that's so good. Hey, Dad. Any other support that you've got in your team, or all 13 members of your team, they are all client facing and money generating?
So in the team, I would say they are all people who are working on services. So that includes strategizing for the inbound marketing piece or the content marketing piece in general, handling social media accounts of the clients, creating that content, creating those graphics. So they're the ones who are essentially, I would say, doing the work. So for me, I fall in the strategizing part and helping them out after that. But the actual execution is now handled by them. The client facing person is me, particularly also because as an agency, you start facing all sorts of clients. So some people are able to, kind of not let it really hamper their entire mood for the day. But most of my team really does not like talking to the clients. In all honesty, yes, we have great clients, but they can be a pain sometimes. We've gone through some of our clients who are not our clients, particularly because they were giving us a hard time for no reasons. And then they told me that, you know what, as long as it's on messages, we'll handle it. But if it's on calls, you're the person who's going to do it. So yeah, I am still the client facing person in most of the scenarios.
That was going to be my next question, was what does your role look like in the company now that you're a team of 13? So still client facing and doing all the client meetings, but what does your role now look like with a much bigger team?
So even day to day, for example, I'll give you an example right now because we're starting a new month. This is what my role essentially now looks like. One is definitely, yes, client facing, because I'm the person who simplifies the technology and is able to create like clear briefs and outlines for my team. So I lie on the strategizing side and the enabling side. That's number one. Number two, because, well, someone has to do the talking to the clients, and I think I'm the skateboard that they all chose. So yes, I do client facing bit as well. Touchwood, we haven't had to do much of business development because everything has been word of mouth for us. But yes, in case there is a prospect that comes to us through a referral, talking to them, kind of onboarding them and then creating an entire process, that's still me. And the new thing that we've recently started is, of course, consulting, content marketing consulting, because we realize that as an agency, we may or may not be affordable to certain startups, or they may have a team in-house, but they actually need experts to, kind of help them do the bigger strategizing and align different teams that are involved in executing content marketing. So consulting projects right now are handled by me because we're still experimenting that how do we want to turn it into a framework that can be replicated across multiple clients. So yeah, that's my role. And on and off hiring. My team tells me I'm not very good with hiring. So because they're like, you're expecting too much, or maybe they think, so what has happened previously, I believe, is that people think I'm too chill to work with, that being the new term for this generation, and they take it up too lightly. So they're like, you need to sound a little serious. So you don't sound that serious. Let us do the hiring. So I think they've hired most of it. So hiring is out of my hands. Now it's not in my scope of work.
Interesting. Not hiring. So where do you get a say in that final piece before you hire? So if you're not involved in the early phases of the recruitment, do you get final say or final interview before new team members are brought on?
Oh, definitely. So even if, so we've had our recent hires through referrals of internal team members. Touch wood, nobody has let me down ever. But at the same time, what I expect them to do in the initial set of calls is essentially get a sense of the understanding that the person has about content marketing, because it's content marketing and not content writing. So a lot of people confuse the two terms and they apply as freelance writers. Right now in the team, yes, we have writers, but I have a tendency of picking content marketers over content writers because I need the bigger piece as compared to a very small piece. So they do that bit of, let's say, checking on background, talking to the person, maybe even sending across a sample task that, okay, can you write about AI or can you write about logistics? And then going through the piece. The first review is done by them. But then eventually, if they feel that the candidate is worth it, then they send across whatever that they've spoken to this particular candidate, the work or the sample test that they had given, and how did they fare, their opinions to me, along with a list of things that that person may be good at, things that that person may not be all that grand at, and where that person, how much hand holding that person is going to require. Because eventually that hand holding comes to me. So I'm the person who's essentially working with each of my teammates to give that little bit of hand holding wherever that they require. So I think that's where I step into the hiring process majorly, and of course the eventual negotiation of the salaries. But for me, I think one of the biggest things is that right now each one of our teammates is someone who can come up to you, speak to you. We talk absolute nonsense throughout the day, but we also talk absolute logic throughout the day. And that's how I wanted to be, because that's how I grew. So my mentor gave me that space, that very open space to communicate freely, right? And it could be about the most stupid things that I've come across or some of the most serious things that I've come across. So I want to be associated as a founder who you can walk up to and say, hey, you know what, I'm planning on starting a side hustle. I'm really stressed out. What do? I want to be able to enable you, because that's the assistance I got. And I want to be that person for somebody. So I think the very last bit is the vibe check, I would say. That's me usually. So I like to talk to a person for a good 30-40 minutes just to get an understanding of, am I really able to speak to this person? Because over time, I've realized that yes, when you're talking professionally, you're able to talk to everyone. But someone that you need to communicate with on a day-to-day basis, or is your teammate, or is going to be somebody who represents your company eventually, that person needs to be, if not 100%, but at least a 60-70% on the same page. The way you speak matters a lot, because tomorrow maybe I may be ill. So you might have to speak to one of our clients. So you can't let us down there. So I think the final go comes from me based on how I feel. Honestly, I've trusted my gut more here because I know the team has taken care of all the background career-wise. So I think the final is just the vibe check that I like to do myself, because I don't want somebody coming in with a lot of negativity, because agency life is honestly very strenuous. It's not easy. It's not like, hey, we're working 4 days. We won't work the fifth day. There are times when we have to work on the weekends as well. And one negative person stepping in can actually ruin the culture for the rest of the team, you know? So, yeah, I guess that's where I lie in the process.
Nice, I like that. It's a gut check on team cultural fit. So nice.
Exactly.
So are your team in one location or are you a remote team? What does that look like?
So interesting part is that back in 2013, remote working was not really a term. Digital nomad was not really a term. We were called freelancers. Mm-hmm. So when I began with the startup, my career into content marketing, I was called a freelancer. And I was working out of here in India and they were there in Singapore. So I think one of the biggest things that this kind of a setup did for me was show me how you really did not need to sit side by side to work together and do like even bigger tasks together. It's just all about using the right technology, communicating frequently, and of course, your work ethic, So I learned the pros and cons of it. I think I worked 1.5 years full time, which meant going to office in the morning, coming back by evening, sometimes not coming back because they were doing an all-nighter. So honestly, I think I never liked the office setup. So yeah, I started as a freelancer. So honestly, I never felt the need to have a physical office. So when someone tells me that, where is your team based out of? They're actually remote. They're all spread out. There's one who is sitting right there in Netherlands as well. So we're all in very different locations. Yes, we haven't been even able to meet. Like I think in the last 2 years, because of the pandemic, we did not get to meet. So when things got lifted and I was confident enough that, hey, okay, now I can travel. I actually recently, last month, traveled. And the funny thing that we all were thinking about when we met each other is that how open we are on video calls and how open we are talking to each other on Slack. And this is the first time that we're seeing each other. It just did not feel like we were seeing each other for the first time because that's how we've been working for all these years. So we've been a fully remote company. I do not plan on having a physical office unless and until absolutely required. I mean, we make such drastic shifts to, kind of what we offer. Or tomorrow, let's say if we build a product, then in that case, I might need an in-house team. But as of now, we are doing good remote.
Fabulous. I love that. And are you a global team? So tell me, where are all of your team members located?
So as of now, we are all Indians, but we have one person who's sitting in Netherlands, who's our advisor, and also the person who handles a little bit of business development where I, for instance, may or may not be able to talk because I lack, let's say, particular industry knowledge. So he's the person who steps in. We also have a salesperson who is out there right now traveling all through Portugal. So he's like literally on the roads, but even he does that. So for example, if some referral comes to me and I am not able to take the call, then in that case, I direct it to him. I'm like, can you please handle the call because I'm too busy with the work side. And plus, I'd like to think that I'm not very grand at sales. I can manage sales, but it's not something that I enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I hand it over to him. So right now we are, let's say about 80 to 90% still Indians, but we do have 2 teammates who are, in different countries as well. So far, I haven't gotten the chance. I did try and hire a couple of other people too, but there was never that. I would say one was definitely the time zone, although I'm somebody who's awake more at night than in the mornings. So that gets overlapped because most of our clients are actually in the US and the UK. Mm-hmm. So we haven't been able to hire someone as a teammate, I would say not yet, still looking, because imagine having somebody in the US time zone means I will get 1 hour additional sleep. So yes, I'm hiring. If you're the person, please reach out to me.
Nice. I like that. I will hire you if I get 1 more hour's sleep.
Yes.
Brilliant. So tell me, what about your systems? How do you manage a remote team? What systems do you have in place to manage that remote team?
Okay, number one thing that we function with is taking up only and only content marketing as an agency. So essentially, what happens is that when you start a marketing agency, people think that you can do digital marketing, and it's a whole stack, a whole array of things into marketing. So the number one thing that I had done really early on is that, hey, we are only going to be tackling content marketing as a piece. There's no such thing as email marketing, etc., coming in. We can write the emails for people because that falls under content, but we will not be setting up the automations. So I cut out things that did not fall into our expertise. I think that was number one, to streamline processes. Number two, we started with a lot of project management tools, right? Like Trello, for instance, and then Slack for our day-to-day communication, because as an agency, we constantly need to stay in touch. And of course, Google Drive. I think that's number one. Everything goes there. Collaboration is really easy. But as a process, initially, we used to create our entire 30-day monthly like calendars for each client in the first week of every month or in the last week of the previous month. So our tasks are kind of planned out for an entire month right at the beginning. So we all know what's assigned where, what's the due date, and it's either set up on Trello or it's set up on Google Excel sheets, depending on what the client is also, kind of okay using. Like, for instance, I've seen pushback from most of our clients on using Trello. So we internally decided that instead of managing an Excel sheet for them, managing Trello for ourselves, also, kind of using Slack to communicate, why not streamline it and make it only Excel if that's what they prefer? But then how do we stay in touch, each one of us, that what is the other person working on? So we started this very small thing called writing your sprints down every single day on Slack. So there are channels for each client. All sorts of communication related to a particular project are in that channel, but we have something called a work channel, and there is no miscellaneous conversation. That's your day-to-day tasks. What are you working on a particular day? And the person is supposed to put it like right at the beginning of the day. So if I am client facing, or if somebody else is also client facing, then in that case, if I need the bandwidth of someone from the team, I can actually write it right below their sprint that, hey, could you deprioritize X task because I need you on Y? So this is how we're coordinating so far. Touchwood, it's going really well. But yes, because it's remote, every now and then everybody forgets to put their sprint. And then there is this little bit of a friction there because somebody doesn't know what needed to be worked on. And then there's a timeline shift. But I think that happens maybe just once in like 4 months. But yeah, majorly we're able to stick to it. These are the little processes that we put in place, planning ahead, not taking up ad hoc, not taking up things that do not fall under our services, and definitely kind of creating that sprint for us every single day. Even if we are on and off, we actually go there and write on and off, so that everybody in the team knows that this person is not available today. And keeping each other in the loop, that's a big part of the process. That's also during hiring, we actually mention it, that you need to be comfortable using Slack, you need to be comfortable using Google Drive, and you need to be comfortable talking. If you don't tell us what's going on with you, we will not be able to enable you, because as an agency, we have a lot of deliverables, a lot of timelines to keep up with across projects. So if somebody falls off, then that means that the timeline is going to get shifted. But if you tell me that, okay, I've hit a writer's block or a creative block, not able to do this, we are able to reassign the entire thing within the team and still get it done. So I think communication is one of the processes as well. Maybe that's how the work sprint kind of, came up.
I love that you've got some clear lines of communication for your team on a daily basis, and some clear tools of how you communicate as a team, how you communicate with your clients, what you're sharing with your clients, what you're sharing with each other. I love how you are approaching that, and mainly because you are a remote team. I love that so much. Any other, like, what if someone wanted to start an agency, what would be 3 things that you would want to share with them in order to grow a successful agency modeled service business?
Interesting, because I actually got asked about something very similar. very recently at a startup network. So the number one thing I think would be that one, treat it as you yourself are responsible for the work that's happening and the work ethic that gets followed. You cannot hold other people accountable for stuff. Everything that happens is on your shoulders. If you do a great job, it's going to be you. If you do a really bad job as a team, it's still going to be you. So the number one thing that you need to do is figure out what you are good at and stick to it, rather than try to, kind of offer too many things together as an agency, because typically that's what happens in an agency model, that you kind of want to offer as many things as possible so that you have multiple revenue streams, is what we say these days. But the more you scatter yourself and your skill set, the more accountable you become to even the bad things. So initially, keep things that you have complete control over. So I think that's number one. Number two is that scale gradually. So I've been told by, I don't know, innumerable people that I scaled my agency too slow. Everybody told me, hey, you're going too slow. You can pick it up. You have the skill set. Why are you not doing this? Hire more people, kind of get more clients, etc. Here's the thing that I personally told them was that I want to do it at my pace, so that when I'm comfortable doing a certain type of a product, a certain type of technology, that's when I want to move to the next. So I don't mind being slower to the game. So decide your own pace. Do not let other agencies. We've had agencies around us, to be very honest. There have been 3 that came up during the same duration. They went into investments and they blew up their agencies, as in they really, really grew their agencies. Yes, they are competitors. But here's the good thing. When anybody says we need a software content marketing agency, they actually come to us because they know that agency is doing it at scale, which means they're doing it for 70, 80 clients. We are streamlined and we are doing it only for 25. So the amount of time and effort that we put in is way, way higher. So even if we charge a little more than them, they're willingly giving it to us. So I would say decide your own pace. Don't scale it because, hey, you saw somebody else do it, or because you felt that, okay, if it's an agency model, I suddenly need like 20 people to execute it. No, you do it yourself. And then if you can't handle it on your own, you replicate the same scope of work, give it to another person. Then if you can't do beyond that, then you hire the next set of people. So definitely that. The third thing I would now recommend, I would say, is read a lot of books. To be very honest, rather than taking a look at what other agencies are doing, read a whole lot of books on your own, because that'll help you streamline a lot of processes internally and encourage your team to do the same. So it can't just be you who's reading. The cultural flow needs to be in such a way that if you are learning, they're learning as well. So if you really want a successful agency, you need people who are, from all the books, by the way, that I've read as well, from the biggest of companies too, you need people who are 60 to 70%, not a replica, but similar to you with their goals. Because you're playing a long-term game. You're not playing a short-term game unless that's the goal. If you are looking at, establishing a big-time agency, you need people who will have faith in you when you have down periods, because as an agency particularly, you will have down periods. You will have times when you suddenly lose 2 to 3 clients, you're not able to replace them. That's a revenue hit. So the revenue hit, if you remain bootstrapped like I have, will automatically also, kind of reflect on everybody's payouts. Maybe sometimes there are difficult times as well. There are people who will stick with you for the longer run. That's who you're looking for. The short-term people will come and go because obviously it's an agency. You will attract those people and they're not really bad. I would say they're great to have, but you need solid backing. So always try and hire in such a way where you match the person's long-term goals, even if it means, kind of enabling them in certain ways so you can do your best. But at the same time, it needs to be a two-way street. You can't just be just another company they work at. So, yeah, I think those would be the 3 things for an agency.
They are beautiful 3 things. I agree with all of them. Like, stay in your lane, do what you do best and do it well. go at your own pace, build your business your way at a pace that works for you, and then get the culture of your business right with the right people who align to your values and your end goals. What great advice. I love all of it.
So glad somebody's agreeing to it at least. I mean, I still get pushback at most of my thinking. So I'm glad to see someone agrees.
Well, I mean, and I really like that you just said that, because it's about trusting in yourself to grow your business in a way that works for you, is comfortable for you. Then you're not overwhelmed with a whole lot of new things and new companies to get up to speed with. You're just bringing on new clients once you're up to speed with your existing clients. Like, that makes perfect sense to me. And you're concentrating on the quality of your service that you're giving, therefore being able to charge more dollars than your competitors because of your quality.
Exactly. That's precisely what I try and drive in, because even if you take on a project early on for a smaller or a lesser cost, if you constantly deliver quality, you can always upsell, you can always cross sell, you can always upgrade. Yes, there are also going to be certain clients who will say, oh no, you're getting too expensive. But then in that case, maybe it's time to retire those clients and move on to the bigger clients. But either which ways, your quality speaks for itself. We haven't, in the last 6-7 years, done any kind of business development or sales, none whatsoever. We've never really had to. And I would really thank my stars and actually my clients for it, because it's word of mouth. And the word of mouth only happens when they see you working really hard alongside them and ensuring that you're giving them quality that they don't even need to look into. Most of our clients don't even need to look into what we're doing right now. It's only the initial skepticism, in the first few weeks, that, hey, do you really understand our product? Are you able to write this? Are you able to do this? Will it be done? Because they've had bad experiences with agencies. And by the way, that's exactly why most agencies have a really bad name as well. The whole term is very negated. But now then they get comfortable. And after a point when they get comfortable, they're barely even talking to us or barely even bothering us about what's done, what's not, because they're like, hey, you'll handle the piece on your own.
Yeah, I like that. And I am of the opinion that if you are doing quality service, then your clients are going to refer you with ease. So when you're an agency and you can focus on a quality service delivery that is staying in your lane of what you do, then it makes it easy for the client to talk about you. And that's how the referrals start to come in, because we're all networking with one another. And I know that I like to work with companies who someone has referred to me, or who someone has said a good word about them, or said, like, you should really check them out because I really rate them. That's who I go to when I'm looking for companies to work with or services that I want to hire into my own business. That's what I really look for, is that referral and that word of mouth. Sure, I'm going to go and do my own due diligence, but the starting point is that word of mouth. So you and I are on the same page there. Do quality work and your work will speak for itself.
Exactly. Yes. If I had to encapsulate, that's exactly the line I would use.
Vanhishikha, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Can you let my listeners know where they can connect with you?
Oh, definitely. You can reach out to me on Twitter. I will drop my handle with Sandra right whenever the episode goes out. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn, where I'm more active, I would say, over email. Traditionally, everybody would share their email. But yes, I dread my inbox. I'm the LinkedIn person. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or even on Instagram for that matter, if you feel like it. And if you do want to reach out to my agency or take a look at what we're doing, you can look us up on contesifyhq.com. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Thanks so much. I will put all of those links in our show notes. So if people are interested in what you do and how you do it, and just maybe want to reach out to you and have a conversation about building an agency, that's great too. You know, how we can share behind the scenes of our business to help other businesses. I'm all about that.
Oh,
So,
definitely. Definitely. I never mind having a brainstorming session. So feel free to reach out to me anytime.
beautiful. Well, thanks so much for joining me here today, and enjoy the rest of your day. I know it's early where you are, so you've got your day ahead of you. Lovely to talk to you.
It was lovely talking to you as well. Thank you for inviting me on the podcast.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope that you enjoyed taking a dive behind the scenes of Vanhishikha's agency. I'll put the links from today's episode in the show notes so you can access them from within the podcast app that you're listening to this episode. The full show notes and a full written blog post are available from my website. So if you want to read a good story, then head on over to sandrajulian.co/podcast13. Before you go and carry on your day, if you really enjoyed today's episode, then make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you get notified of the new episodes as soon as they're released. If, like me, you listen in the Apple Podcast app, then I'd really appreciate if you could rate the show and leave a quick review. It would really mean the world to me if we were able to spread the word about this podcast to all of your friends and business buddies. If you're not listening in the Apple Podcast app, then simply take a screenshot of this episode and share it with me on Instagram. You can tag me at sandrajulian.co. I'd love to hear your feedback and your thoughts on either today's episode or any other episodes that you've listened to. Alrighty, my friend, go and enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you again real soon.